Hello and welcome to my Greybox of a first-person shooter level, this one themed after Abandoned Apartment. This was created in Unreal using the SuperGrid Starter Pack, a greyboxing tool that is free on the Unreal store. And so the mission that the player has to go on in this level is to recover information, free a hostage, capture an important person. Once they reach the end of the level, the mission's complete. And so, as we can fly in, we can see that there's already some enemies on the second floor. Those will not be spawned in at the start of the level, they will spawn in once the player reaches the second floor. So, we continue on into the building. There's an empty lobby at first. This is to allow the player to orient themselves first before encountering any enemies, similar to this hallway. The elevator shaft, which is currently not in use, their elevators have been broken down by now. But they do form a landmark for the player to know where the center of the building is at all times. So as we continue on, there's a fallen beam from the ceiling, as well as some rubble. The player must crouch under to go over here, just to help ensure that the player knows some basic movement abilities. And here we encounter the first enemies holed up in one of the apartments. The enemies would be facing away from the player, unaware of their position, so the player can choose whether or not to engage them. If they do, they will alert other enemies, such as the one over here, and if they don't, they might be able to get the drop on this enemy or continue on further into the level without notice. I wanted to use this room to help orient the player by using detailing. We have some counters for a kitchen, a table here, a bed. Basically, when the player moves further on into the level into the more destroyed areas, they will be able to see some of these props and instantly recognize where they are. And so using the basic layout of the room, they'll be able to kind of know how to navigate. So whether or not the player shoots those people, they move on up this staircase. Right here is where the player must fight. This enemy will notice them climbing up the staircase. And so once this happens, all the enemies will be alerted to the player's position. So from here, it's a matter of going on through the locations. Right now, the rooms are all kept in a single flow manner. No branching paths for the player to take yet. It's simply learning the combat and going through. So here we can see the enemies have started to fortify themselves. Still only one path, but the player can fight their way through. Here we have a collapsed floor, which is what caused the fallen beam before. The player must go around, so they have to continue on through the level. Just more enemies. Right now it's all kind of a steady difficulty level, as the player fights through some rather close quarters combat. This enemy the player may have already slain, depending on if they shot them through the doorway or simply rushed past. And so we get through here, a broken down wall with an enemy behind it. Here we get to one of the deluxe rooms where more enemies are holed up. This is kind of the midpoint of the level. This is where the presumed location of whatever the player's target is. So the players fight their way through here, into the bedroom. One of the bathrooms is onto the balcony. This enemy is spawned in now. Unfortunately, their target's not here. It seems that they must have retreated further on in. So the player goes back out and down the path that they've not yet taken. The other deluxe room has been, the doors are broken down and the player cannot enter. And here we can see where the ruin of this hotel has truly taken effect, as all the floors above this have collapsed down, forming difficult terrain with lots of cover and different height levels. We can see an enemy up here, which likely won't be the first one the player takes on, so they might get the drop on them at first. And so the player has a variety of paths that they can choose to take. This is the max climb height, and so the player might choose to jump up and climb up here, taking advantage of this cover and trying to get the high ground. Or they may go over here, taking cover behind this ramp, possibly even moving all the way up here. They can either go through the left-hand area or straight down the center. Each path has a variety of cover that they could take, that they can make use of in order to defeat all the enemies here. And so we continue on. Here we get to the 3rd floor. Again, things have been pretty much completely ruined. Here we have what used to be a storage area, now completely empty. Some enemies in here. Here we have some of the basic layouts of the map, of previous apartment rooms from before. More enemies behind here. There's also an alternate path the player can take. They could either choose to go through this area thick with enemies, or they could choose to take out these enemies here and crawl under here, getting the drop on this enemy who's expecting you to be here. Either way, it doesn't matter. The player can also go all the way around to the right into this deluxe room. More enemies, basic bathroom. And so the player can continue on. Here's where things get super crowded. The player has to constantly be crouching, making their way through the rubble where enemies are still awaiting them. They can duck for cover in this room, though there is another enemy here, before continuing out, taking down these enemies, crouching, climbing over this rubble and taking care of the enemies within, before finally reaching the final room. In one storage room, a number of enemies have pulled up, with a target at the very end. That is the current Greybox, and thank you for watching.